Welcome in to another episode of AFL Weekly, the road to Arena Bowl 33. I'm your host, Joshua Cox. A little late this week. Been working on our 16 teams in 16 days preview series that's been going out. We got our first 4 teams out. We got out Albany, Orlando, West Texas, and we put out today Billings. And so we got Nashville coming out tomorrow. Super excited for that. If you haven't watched those, they're on our YouTube channel. They're also on Apple, and they're also on Spotify. Excited about this season, guys. Training camp started this week. Salina, Southwest Kansas, and Billings for sure, I know, started training camp this week. We are getting closer and closer to the AFL season. It's hard to believe. We can feel it. It's almost here. And so ready to go. Going to be out probably in a week or so at Desert Hawks training camp, so looking forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun. They're going to have a great team this year, so looking forward to getting out to West Texas. Wanted to talk about a couple things really quick before we get into what we talked about. We're going to talk about last week, and that is our division breakdowns. We're going to give you our picks for every single division, as well as our rebound off the net power rankings. But I want to hit on a couple things first. The AFL announced a partnership with Gray TV this week to bring local broadcasts to these games. They'll be on local television in these markets. So excited for that. I think that's going to be great for the AFL, being on free TV that anybody can watch, that anybody can come across. And I think it helps grow the AFL brand. They're going to be on a streaming partner too, but I think being on local TV for free, very important in growing this brand. And I think this is a great partnership. In any way we can get the AFL game out there, the better. And I think it's great for the league. So the AFL also announced a partnership today with an organization or a business that's going to help the AFL in the sports betting market. I think that's important for the league to get people involved and also just to gain interest because there's a lot of sports gamblers out there. And I think this is great for the league. And we'll see where this goes. And we'll see if the AFL is on different books and how that goes. But in this day and age, something very important. Big step for the league today. So, big step there. I'm ready to go. Let's do these division breakdowns, and we'll do our power rankings. First off, before I do these, no disrespect to any coach or any team in the league. This is just how I see it, and this is how I see it from my view and where these teams are at right now. So, wanted to say at the start, NAL, you're going to see a pattern here. The NAL teams, I think, have a big advantage this year that's moved over because they've played a similar game, and plus they've been an established team. With that, I think the established teams also have a big advantage this year. So you're going to see that pattern as we go through our breakdowns. First off, we're going to start with the East. Maybe probably the strongest division. The South, very strong too. I think the Central and the West, a lot weaker. No disrespect to those divisions. I think they're a lot weaker though. I think the East and South is going to be the best divisions in the AFL this year. So we'll start with the East. First off, our first pick is the Albany Firebirds to win the East. I don't think there's no question there. I think Albany is the best team in the AFL this year. As I said last week, I think Albany's going to win the Arena Bowl. I think they have the most talent. A lot of people they cut are going to be starting on other rosters. And that's a really good problem to have. And so I think Albany is the clear favorite, and they're our number one team in the East this year. The second team we got is the Nashville Cats. I talked about last week. They're our dark horse team to win the Arena Bowl. Don't think it happens this year, but a lot of talent there. Head coach Dean Kakinos has been in the league a long time. Won an Arena Cup championship. Their associate head coach, Adam Shackelford, he's been in the league forever. He's won an Arena Cup championship. They got great leadership there. Jeff Fisher, Greg Pogue. That's going to be one of the model franchises and one that's going to be really good for years. And they're building something special there. Don't think they're better than Albany yet, though. But I got them as our number 2 pick in the Eastern Division. 3 and 4 was hard. The other two is number 3, the Minnesota Myth, number 4, Philly Soul. I can see this going either way. I think Philly's at a disadvantage, only playing three home games this year. That's why that was kind of the tiebreaker of how I put them in 4th. They got some talent there. Minnesota's got some talent too. Really impressed. Really like Ricky Foggy, their head coach. Think he's going to do great things there. Minnesota guy, former Gopher quarterback. Think he's going to do big things there. But this is a really tough division. I think Minnesota and Philly could possibly win the Central, but they're going to finish probably 3 and 4 in the East. And so the East is really going to be challenging. This division is going to be tough for years to come. So competitive. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And it's almost kind of sad that a good team could finish 4th in this division and not make the playoffs. And so crazy how good this division is going to be in the future. But also this year, I think it's going to be pretty good, especially Albany and Nashville. I think they're going to be pretty good. And Minnesota, Philly will probably be middle of the pack in the power rankings. So we'll move on to the South. Our pick to win the South, Desert Hawks. I think they're the second most talented roster in the league. Chris Siegfried returns to the sidelines after being the NAL commissioner the last 7 years. I think good things are going to happen there. They have a lot of talent. They put a lot of work in. I think they're the second best team in the league. I think they're going to win the South. That's our pick to win the South. South's going to be almost as good as the East, I think, but probably not quite as good as the East. But there's going to be this South's going to be a really tough division. Second, and a really close second, is the Orlando Predators. Really underachieved last year. They brought in E.J. Burt as their head coach this year. He was the DC last year. Excuse me. I think he's going to do great things with the Preds. Former Preds player. He played defensive end for the Preds back in the days. He wants to restore the old Predator ways. I think he's going to bring that franchise back to prominence. I think they're going to be really good. I think they're the third best team in the league this year. Really close second with the Desert Hawks. But we'll see how that shakes out in the division there. So, yeah, Desert Hawks, Orlando Predators, number 2. Number 3, Louisiana Voodoo. I think they got some talent this year. I think they're going to be pretty decent. We'll see where they go. But I think they're the third best team in the South. It's kind of the same thing with the East. I think Louisiana could have a chance to win a division like the Central, but because they're in the South, they're third, which is kind of unfortunate. But it is what it is. The divisions are the way they are, and but I think Louisiana is going to be a pretty decent team. We'll see what happens there. Number 4 in the South, Georgia Force. Know about half their roster, a little more right now. No matter what ends up happening with their roster, how it shakes out, I still see them as 4th. I think they're at a disadvantage from getting kind of a late start after the ownership change. Don't see them at the top of the South this year, but I think they're going to be really good in the future. A lot of good players in the Georgia, Atlanta area. I think they're going to build some really good teams going forward. But I think it's going to be a struggle this year. Also, kind of like Philly, they're not going to play as many home games. We haven't really guaranteed any home games at the current moment. I'm pretty sure they're going to play 2 or 3, but not a certainty at the moment. So we'll see what happens there with Georgia. Either way, we left them off our power rankings for right now until we see the complete roster. But either way, I think Georgia finishes 4th, no matter how that roster shakes out. But they're going to be a team to watch in the years to come as they gain more stability with the franchise there. The Central Division, think this in the West is going to be, these are not going to be as good divisions, I don't think. I think the Central is going to be a little bit better than the West. I think the West is overall the weakest division. We'll see how that plays out. But the Central, I think the Central is pretty much up for grabs, especially from the top 3 we have here. I think this could go in a lot of different ways. But when it came down to it, we're not betting against Ron O'Neal, one of the all-time legendary indoor coaches. He's won 4 championships. Not going to bet against him. I think Salina wins the Central. I think it'll be an adjustment for Ron O'Neal going from the indoor game to the arena game. He's never coached the arena game specifically. But I think he's going to figure it out. All he does is win. I don't really see anything different in the AFL, especially in the division he's in. I think Salina wins this with fairly ease, I think. Even though I could see the top 3 going anyway, depending on what happens. I think Salina's the favorite here. So, number 2, Iowa Rampage. Got a good coaching staff. Tyus Jackson, head coach, former AFL player. Donovan Morgan, offensive coordinator, former AFL player. I think that helps them a lot on the coaching staff standpoint. Tyus Jackson took over the team later on. Donovan Morgan come along later on too. They made a coaching change. I believe it was in January. It's a little bit of a late start for Iowa for the coaching staff there, but I think they're going to be a pretty decent team. Got them at second. I don't think they're jumping over Salina. Tyus Jackson, I don't believe has been a head coach before. I think that will be an adjustment for him there. But I think Iowa's going to be a pretty decent team. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be right there with Salina. They're going to be fighting for it. But at the end of the day, I think Salina wins the division. Iowa's second. Third, we got the Southwest Kansas Storm. Got a pretty talented roster. They've done pretty decent there on the roster. Gary Thomas, head coach, really successful JUCO coach. He's never coached the indoor game, which I think is going to be a big adjustment. He's working really hard at it, but I really think it's going to be a big adjustment for this year in Dodge City. I see the Storm finishing third in this division, but I think they're going to be really competitive. The last team in the division, the Wichita Regulators, we got them fourth. Really like Clinton Solomon, their head coach. I think he's going to get the most he can out of this roster. But just frankly speaking, I don't think Wichita's roster is up to the AFL level that it needs to be. I think this roster is just honestly not going to be very good. I think Coach Solo will get the most he can out of this roster. But honestly speaking, if they win 2 to 3 games, I think that's going to be a big achievement because just don't think, no disrespect to the players, but I just don't think that roster is very good. I don't think they've bumped up as much as they should to the AFL level from where they was at before. And so I don't see them winning more than 2 or 3 games max. I think it's going to be a pretty hard season in Wichita. So pretty tough season going to be there, I believe. Let's go to the West. Billings Outlaws favorite to win the West. I don't see them doing anything less than 8-2. I think they're going to win all their games in the West. I don't think anybody's going to be super competitive with them in the West. I think they got Albany. They also got West Texas in the regular season. So if they lose both of those games, 8-2, 9-1, I think they'll be 8-2, 9-1 if they win one of those games. So I think it's going to be a pretty good season in Billings. Cedric Walker, head coach, Cedric Bonner, one of the all-time great quarterbacks. Special things in Billings. I think they're doing some great things there. I think they win the West with ease. 8-2 minimum. Don't see much of a struggle there. Second, we got the Oregon Black Bears. Chuck Jones, a head coach. Really like that dude. I think they're going to be decent. Maybe 6 wins, maybe 5 to 6 wins at the max, probably in Oregon. But got some talent. Jordan Pouncey, wide receiver from Florida. Jeremiah Spicer, linebacker. Got some talent there. I think it's going to be an adjustment, startup franchise. But 5 or 6 wins max. They'll finish second in the West. And their rival, Washington. I think that Oregon-Washington rivalry is going to be a good rivalry with Chuck Jones and J.R. Wells going back and forth at each other. Both bring a lot of high energy, play each other in the opener. That's going to be a fun game to watch. Looking forward to that. Washington, not expecting a lot from them this year. We'll see how it goes. Startup franchise. J.R. Wells, I'm pretty new to the arena game. I think it's going to be a struggle in Washington. Probably 4 wins max there in Washington at the max. Don't think their roster is up to par with the Black Bears or the Outlaws. Definitely, especially not the Outlaws. Think it's going to be a struggle in Washington in year 1. We'll see how that goes. Probably 4 wins max for the Wolfpack, but we'll see how that goes. Probably could go back and forth with 3 and 4. Could see either way with Rapid City and Washington there, but we got Rapid City Marshall's 4th. They haven't proven they can win yet. 0-8 last year. I don't think they even won a game the year before. So they're trying to make the jump. They have improved their roster. Have been pretty impressed with that. Their roster is better, a whole lot better than where it was at. Brought in Sean King, who was pretty successful in Billings last year, taking over as interim head coach. So we'll see what happens in Rapid City. Probably 2 or 3 wins max is what I'm thinking. Don't expect big things in Rapid City, but I do think they take a step forward and win 2 or 3 games possibly. I think they're going to be more competitive, a whole lot more competitive in games. Even though I don't think they'll win very many, they'll be a competitive team. So that's what we got 4th, the Rapid City Marshals. So our division winners: Albany Firebirds, Desert Hawks, Lionel Liberty, Billings Outlaws. 4 divisions in the AFL this year. Let's close this thing out with our power rankings. Number 1, Albany. No surprise there. Number 2, West Texas. Number 3, Orlando. Number 4, Billings. Number 5, Nashville. I think the Arena Bowl cutoff line is probably at 4. Arena Bowl contender cutoff line is probably at 4. Maybe Nashville at 5. Beyond that, don't think anybody in the rest of the league can win the Arena Bowl. We'll see how that goes. I'd say that's about the cutoff line there, though. Louisiana 6, like I said, I think they'll have a pretty decent year. 7, Salina. That's our pick to win the Central. 8, Minnesota. 9, Iowa. 10, Philly. 11, Oregon. 12, Southwest Kansas. 13, Washington. 14, Rapid City. 15, Wichita. And I know Georgia's not in there yet. We'll wait till their roster's complete to place them accurately in there. But that's our power rankings. We'll put these up on Twitter and Instagram. Let me know what you all think. Comment below on our social media feeds. You can also comment on this video on YouTube. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I'm completely wrong. I love the feedback. But thanks for watching this week. We'll be back next week as we dive more into training camp. We'll talk some more about these teams. And it's almost here, guys. Almost here. It's hard to believe. Been a long week. Like I said, if you haven't, go watch our 16 teams in 16 days season preview series, YouTube, Apple, and on Spotify. 4 teams out so far. We got 12 more to go. Nashville will be coming out in the morning. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a great season. And so appreciate you all listening. Let me know what you think on these teams. This has been another episode of AFL Weekly, the road to Arena Bowl 33. Thank you for listening. Always remember, catch the rebound off the net.